an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Well, welcome again to another exciting episode of the Ultimate Global Podcast. This is a special series of episodes that we are doing on jobs and marketplaces. One of the topics, which is a very, very hot topic, whenever people are looking out for jobs, or maybe they are switching for more jobs, there is always a question of what's more important for you. Is it the resume? Is it that LinkedIn profile that people want to make more fanciful? Is it your career, your experience that matters a lot? What's more important? What is more valuable? What should be your career pathways? So to talk about this, we've got a very special guest today, joining from Germany. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
His name is Wolfgang, and he's from Evident Scientific. He's the head of Global Academy at Evident Scientific. And maybe, Wolfgang, before we dive into the topic, why not you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of tell a bit more about what you are doing at Evident Scientific?
Yes, that's my pleasure. Thanks, first of all, of having me here in this podcast. Yeah, my name is Wolfgang Hempell. I'm working for Evident Scientific, and Evident Scientific, we are selling expert products from experts to experts. So we have very specialized products from research microscopes to ultrasonic testing devices for testing weldings, pipelines, and so forth. So we have very specialized products. And that's the reason why we decided to build up a global academy to share expert knowledge and really to leverage the knowledge that we have in our organization, and with the ultimate target to really provide the right services and products to our customers.
Excellent. Wow. In terms of the topic today, which is pretty interesting, Wolfgang, which I can see that maybe you can share some of your stories from your career itself. How do you feel this kind of debate, which happens when people say that more important to look at the resume or more important to look at your career and experience and those kind of things? So what is more valuable to start off with? That's the question of the in the topic itself. What would you say on that?
Yeah, so my personal opinion is that a CV is way more valuable than a really fixed career. At least when I'm looking for new people and I'm looking into the inquiries, then and I see someone who really went straight through school with top A rates and then directly went to university and then applying for a job, I feel a little less attracted to someone who probably maybe had some sideways, maybe spent some time outside. And from my point of view, he doesn't always need to have a complete CV available. So if there's a gap in the CV and he's not willing to talk about it in the interview, I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. If he's telling me, no, I was somewhere else, was a great time, just trust me, it was awesome, then I favor these guys more than someone who goes straight. Because nowadays, when we're looking, especially after the pandemic situation, I'm feeling our jobs are changing so dramatically. We need to see left and right our path, and we need to look to have this out of the box thinking to be really successful and to be creative in our jobs, because the world is changing so quickly that we need to adapt and find ideas from elsewhere. If we stay in our own businesses, I think we cannot develop so quickly. So therefore, yes, for me, a CV is more relevant than a career. And I'm now 51 years old, and I'm working since more than 30 years. I can tell you the people with a CV, with those guys I'm working and collaborating better than someone who just finished school and was only in one system available.
So I totally agree with you on those points. Some of the points can definitely be discussed here. So what you are saying is, I just you look into the CV more than anything else. But what in specific in the CV? Because sometimes CVs can be confusing as well. When you interview the candidates and you kind of talk to them face to face and try to judge them on different questions, they
Mm.
might not be able to answer you. Their CVs might look really good, but they might not be able to justify what they actually have on the CV. How would you kind of consider that while you're evaluating those CVs?
Well, I see it that if really someone is looking into different cultures, this is for me of highest value in our modern world. If, especially in my role as a global role, where we are trying to bring education from all cultures together into one and maybe adapt it also to other cultures. And if someone has then a background of a kind of multicultural background, maybe from home, maybe from his CV, then I find this guy very, very interesting. And then the next step is what I experienced myself is I should invite him for an interview and get to know this guy in person, or this lady. And then the interview is decided after the first handshake. Either it works or not. And then we see if there is a common wave, if there's some sympathy in between. And then we have the interview. And after that, I'm pretty sure that I can decide on the right person, simply to see if there's a common point to start from.
I might want to direct this to George because he's been mentoring a lot of students. So, in the CVs, a lot of the times we're putting in our degrees. Some people debate that what's the use of putting in a degree? We would like to see how much experience do you have for a college graduate coming out in the market. And somehow I feel that the traditional way of educating the school kids, or the traditional way of kind of education, is kind of getting we are getting advanced in the industry but not so advanced in education. um, and still we are more theoretical as compared to the practical concepts that we can teach as per the new industry standards in the university and colleges, even in developed countries like Australia. What thoughts do you have on this, George?
Um, as always, Sarab, I'm sorry, but you ask me a question and then I go to a different point before I come to the question you asked me. I do that to him all the time, Wolfgang. I'm interested, Wolfgang, from the way you're talking, I'm getting the impression that you're talking from a perspective of people sending their CV to you for you to then decide whether you will employ these people, as opposed to an employment agency screening CVs and then picking somebody to send to you. Am I correct in that assumption?
Both ways are right. So of course we're using both measures, both ways to get good
Okay.
people.
The reason I asked the question is because one of the things that I find very annoying these days is that supposed professional people that are supposed to be hiring people, they have automated systems, and unless there's magic words in the CV, quite often people don't actually get to the stage of being able to meet the person that would like to meet them. And for years, I refused to have an employment agency get people for me unless they promised that they were not using automatic screening. So I'd like your input on that. Coming back now, Sarab, to your question, I think what happens is with students and they're at uni, they've gone through 3 or 4 years, and the university keeps telling them how wonderful they are because they're at University of New South Wales or University of George or University of Sarab. And so the kids start to think, oh, as soon as I tell people I went to this particular uni, everything's fine. What they need to be doing is explaining, I have done this course and that demonstrates that I can stick at something that many others haven't. But I have also had this casual job, and from that I learnt, and I've had this casual job, and from that I've learnt, and I've had this casual job. The job doesn't have to be specific to the actual profession or course that they've done. Because as Wolfgang was saying, and I agree with him, I look to see what have you done and what's the width and breadth of you. So when you tell me, oh, I've been at uni for 4 years, well, of course you have. You've been doing a degree. But what does that tell me? Whereas if you can articulate and you can say, well, I've done these things above and beyond, then I think there's a richness. So that's how I see it.
And I think the role of extracurriculars and extra activities beyond your academic world is kind of becoming more and more popular at the university level, because you want to develop those skills which are more relevant to the job, be it soft skills like how to present yourself. If you're in the sales job, how to present yourself in front of the customers. Have those skills of
Yep.
have the listening ability to not always talk but also listen sometimes, listen more in fact than talk in case of sales, because then you
I'm
can
glad
find
you
more
said that.
answers. Then I think you can find more answers, because when you listen, you can find a new way of doing the same thing. But when you're talking, you're always speaking what you already know, so you're not gaining anything new to your already existing knowledge. What do you think about this, Wolfgang, in terms of the extracurriculars and the extra skills? How do you judge a person who is coming straight out of the uni, and he has applied to your company, or how would you judge his CV? What are the 3 or 4 things that you might look into that? Because maybe a lot of students are looking into this episode and they might be thinking, what should we do to make our CVs more attractive?
Yeah, I would look what you do in private, in your free time as well. Do you do sports? Maybe you're a trainer assistant or something like this. So you educated already young people on sports. So you used your free time to relax and take care of other topics than your university. That's something that I find extremely interesting. We had, I'm not sure if this is known in Australia, we had in Europe this PISA study, or maybe it was a global study, I'm not sure. And it was back in 2010 or 8, I don't know. And the outcome was that our German schools are too long. So if you finish with high school, you're 13 years in school. And so decided to reduce it by 1 year. And they put a lot of pressure onto the kids to get all the stuff into these 12 years. And literally, they had no time to have any hobbies sometimes. Yeah, if they're struggling in school, then they really were spending all the afternoons in studying. And my message here is this is not necessary. I myself, I went 13 years to school. Then I became a professional photographer. I spent almost 7 years in taking pictures of weddings. And then the agency I was working for developed into a travel agency, and we traveled around the world to take pictures of nice places. And then the internet kicked in and images were pretty cheap. So our job was not payable anymore. And then in an age of 26, I went to university to become a photo engineer. So anyone looking from the outside would say, what a disastrous career. At the very end, I was standing with 19 years in front of 80 people at a wedding and had to take a group picture. And I had to entertain these guys who had already champagne. They were in a festive mode. And I'm sitting there with 19 years with my stupid Hasselblad camera and had to bring them to laugh. And this is a competency I have now when I'm presenting in front of 300 people, or if I'm speaking with customers. This is really helping me to make the difference. It was not on purpose, it just came by a coincidence, but this is really a competence I have now because of the way I did my career. I never planned my career. It came by coincidence. So therefore, I think to all the students out there, take your time. There's no rush. Nowadays, we need to work anyways long enough, and look left and right the way. And if you have a gap in your CV, don't worry.
One of the things that Wolfgang, we were discussing yesterday and day before yesterday on LinkedIn, and you said that there should be you should give yourself enough opportunity to fail, and also take a break in between, not always have those positive experiences. Would be exciting to know, from my point of view, people who are young, sometimes I get afraid to fail. My month goes wrong and I'm like, oh no, I'm not meeting my sales target in this month, and what's happening? So I might get a bit stressed out and I might say, all right, there's something wrong that I'm doing that I need to figure out as soon as possible so that I can meet my target. But sometimes there are failures and mistakes that we are doing, which kind of, if we look deep into ourselves and take right mentorship, can be improved. What do you mean by that, by the way?
I mean that if you are anxious to make mistakes, you don't do anything. And it's better to do things, and let's say 30% of them will fail, but 70% of them will be gorgeous. So instead of doing nothing, just give it a try. And the worst thing is if you don't learn from your mistakes. So you always need to take your time, think back and reflect on why it failed, maybe what went wrong, what is the learning you can take with you, and then next time you'll be even stronger. And this is not going to happen, or you can already anticipate what might happen, and then you take different measures there. And well, in Germany, we have a culture of almost zero failure culture. Yeah, it's a big, big issue when you fail. I know in America, it's completely different. Yeah, you might be accepted to university only if you failed two times before in another university. Yeah, this is complete different culture, and that's living here in Germany, I feel, is the wrong direction. And honestly, if you're in social network and if you're looking on YouTube, you see all these motivational speeches from Steve Jobs, from Denzel Washington, Fall Forward, all these guys who have a really, really awesome career. And if you look deep in there, then you see how often they failed and why they are now these remarkable gentlemen that they are. Or Graham Bell, who invented the light bulb. Yeah, he failed 9,000 times in inventing the light bulb, and only one time it worked, but it works. And this is what I mean. Yeah, it's especially in Germany and maybe also in other countries in Europe, we have this don't fail, don't fail. And then some people are sitting like the rabbit in front of the snake and they don't do anything. Instead of this, try to immerse yourself into a culture where failure is appreciated. If you fail 3 times because of the same reason, then it's probably something is going completely wrong. But yeah, that's what I mean. Take your time, dare to fail, reflect on what you did, and then get up and go again out.
Do you have anything to say on this, George?
Well, that's obvious because I do.
I could
I
see
do.
your lips. I could see your lips half moving, but you were waiting for me to say something.
Yes. So I'm well known within my group of having a lot of funny sayings, but that have serious business to them. And one of those sayings, Wolfgang, is if you have the courage to fail, you automatically earn the right to succeed.
Awesome.
Now,
Exactly.
it doesn't guarantee success, but if you don't have the courage to fail, you have no chance of succeeding because you won't try.
Exactly.
I don't have the right to succeed at bungee jumping because I do not have the courage to fail at it. The other thing is on this topic, I launched into the grocery industry in Australia a product called WD-40, which is I don't know whether that's in Germany or not, but
I have several of them in my cellar. Yes, I know it well.
okay.
That,
So what WD-40 is all about, which when I worked with them about 30 odd years ago, it was one of the largest single product companies in the world. It's water displacement formula 40. The first 39 failed. And so what I say to my students and what I say to the people that I coach and advise, if ever you think you're doing it tough, just imagine if WD-40 had stopped at 39.
Yeah.
So you also made comment about the failing 3 times. I have a principle in business with employees and people I work with. If you fail at the same thing, I mean the same thing in the same way, you are either not coachable or you don't care. And either way, I'm not the right person for you to be with. If you fail, you think you get it right and you fail slightly differently, and you think you get it right and you fail slightly differently, I can see that you're learning. So failure, Sarab, it's not about whether you fail or not. What it's about, as Wolfgang said, it's about the learning, and it's about the understanding, and it's about being able to fall down, get up, dust yourself off. You can take any elite sports person in the world and see how many times they've failed compared to how many times they've won. The difference is when they fail, they get up and do it again. Greg Norman, a very, very famous Australian golfer, is synonymous with being a choker. The guy is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If that's what being a choker at golf's about, give me a golf club.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights. One of the songs that we keep on hearing is Never Gonna Give You Up. That's one of my favorite songs early on in the morning, because that's the song, if you listen to and you start doing your sales before listening to this song, I'm sure, even if my sales is going really, really bad, I'll still might try my best to make that day the best one in the last whatever months I've been doing sales. So I think that's one of my ways of doing that. Hands up.
My song on that basis, Sarab, is I get knocked down, but I get up again. You ain't never going to keep me down.
Perfect song.
Yeah.
Of course. Wolfgang, one last question for you. We have talked about the students, we have talked about international education kind of sector, but maybe from the experience point of view as well, for people who are more experienced into the industry, who have 10, 20 years of experience, what about them? They might say that, we don't care about our degrees because we've already have 20 years of experience. It's all about whatever we have done. And then also I keep on hearing different things. People might be initially going into sales and marketing, or initially might go into IT, and then in the latter half of their career they might enter into technology or IT sort of role, and then they might say, oh, actually, I'm not enjoying my technology role a lot, I might want to move to sales. How do you interpret such kind of roles, and how do people switch between different roles? Can be a very useful question for people who want to switch within their company or with different companies.
Yeah, very good question. First of all, if you feel the need and you have internally you feel like I need to change something in my life, you have to change it. It's your life. And now we're living in this awesome time in the 21st century where knowledge is available in all places. Yeah, I was educated by my mathematics teacher and said, Wolfgang, you need to do brain calculation because you're not always having a pocket calculator with you. Here is my pocket calculator, and it's always with me. Knowledge is always with me. So what we need to learn, especially those guys who are maybe now 50 or 20 years in the career or something like this, learning is changing right now quite dramatically. We are moving from a push learning culture into a pull learning culture. What I mean with this is we went to school, we learned for life in schools. That's what our teachers told us always. And back home, we had these books, especially in Germany. We had the oak shelf with the big library of 24 books, 20 years old, inherited by your grandfather, but this was the truth. Yeah. And now we have Wikipedia, and there's the real truth in there. So what I want to say is dare to change, and don't expect others to educate you, but also bring some self-motivation in looking onto YouTube, looking onto LinkedIn, looking onto Wikipedia, looking elsewhere. It's your own responsibility to have the right knowledge available to make your job or your hobby or to manage your private life. And this is when I discuss with colleagues and friends, this is something where we're right now changing a lot. Yeah, elderly people are still in this, well, I expect someone to bring the knowledge to me. The young ones, they're going on YouTube and they fix the car, what always scares me a lot, but that's the way how it works. And that is something that we need to acknowledge. And we're living in such an awesome time now where we have the access to so much knowledge and global knowledge. Yeah, we're speaking here. You guys are in Australia, I'm in Germany. Amazing. So understand that life is changing. It got lots of tailwind through this pandemic situation. And now we need to adjust our own private life, our professional life, according to the possibilities we do have. And in most cases, they are even free of charge. So I think never ever knowledge was so cheap as it is today.
Well, thank you so much, Wolfgang. I really appreciate your time today for spending 30 minutes odd and discussing on this very, very critical topic of career and CV. I'm sure that this is a great episode and value addition for our series of episodes on jobs and workplaces. People listening to that, and we have covered both for experienced and young people. So I'm sure both sides of people will kind of understand the insights from their angle. And by the way, just to add to this, before we end today's episode, I think this is close to the 100 episodes that we are now completing with the Ultimate Global Podcast. And we have already invited more than 80 speakers on this podcast from 13 different countries. And we have been inviting a couple of them from Germany. So, if people are listening to us from Germany, for them, there is a very good thing that I was witnessing while I was going through the analytics of this podcast a few days ago, that our top ranked countries, in the top 4 countries, I think Germany ranks number 3, followed by, Australia. Australia comes number 1, India, Germany, and US. So we have got a lot of audience in Germany, which is building up. Primarily because of the speakers and the quality of speakers we have invited, such as yourself, in the last few months. So thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you, and congratulations, and all the best for the future way of this podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's been great talking with you.
This is an Ultimate Global Podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.